Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 42. Oh boy, how did we miss this one? Whenever there is a big drop in the population numbers, someone usually points it out in the comments. This time, it got past everyone it seems. I already know the cause of the problem, and it will be fixed the first thing in the video, so it's not the end of the world, but it still stings that I let this go past us. You'll see what's going on when we get into the gameplay. As for the meat of the episode, we will at long last get to the point where we start making steel, and in pretty decent amounts too. And it will only get better as the population rebounds after this latest fiasco. I am also happy to say that I managed to come up with a solution to our cable car buying problem, and near the end of the video, we will even get to the point where we put together a small electro components factory. Before we get started, if this is not your first video from this channel, you already know what to expect. If you want to be kept up to date, please consider subscribing, and if you like what you see, leaving a like will also help letting me know what to focus on. But enough talking, let's get into it. So, here's the cause of the recent drop in population. None of the secondary waste processing buildings are working. I completely forgot to reset the local bus stop, so it sends workers to all buildings equally. This caused the waste to back up into the separator, and made it impossible to dump the garbage, resulting in a massive pollution spike in the new town. We lost about 2,000 to 3,000 people altogether. Good thing it happened in such a small place. We can just sweep this under the rug, and not broadcast it to the wider public. Still, looking at that graph take a nosedive really stings. And the worst thing is, I sort of knew about this issue. I noticed it once or twice while doing some pre-episode testing, but never got around to fixing it during the recordings. Gameplay-wise, it won't be a huge setback. We can replenish the population relatively easily, it will just take a while to do so. As for our cable car buying problem, here's the solution. I just favorited them using that little star icon, and that put the two we need on top of the list. Without this, we would have had to switch between the two vehicle categories every 4 purchases, resulting in a massive strain on my hand and fingers. We need 136 cars altogether. And we need them to be distributed as evenly as possible. It really would make the cable car lines run inefficiently if we had 75 passenger cars, followed by 25 garbage cars. If we ensure a regular pattern, it will be a much smoother operation. Perfect, exactly what we want to see. 3 passenger cars, followed by a garbage car, and that pattern repeats for every delivery. And we can fit 2 whole patterns into the trucks. Now, there was an idea floated in the comments, where we could have used the more advanced features of the line setup, where we could specify what kind of vehicles the trucks are allowed to pick up. But, for some reason cable cars are not present in that list anywhere. Really weird that they aren't there. It would have been a real neat solution too. I really wanted to get rid of that steel area label, but it still didn't let me, so I went around, trying to find what was holding it there. Well, we will get back to it in a second, but I also wanted to sort out the garbage in Dolny. If you remember, we had some unwanted byproducts coming out of the incinerator there. The thing is, I checked every possible inputs the incinerator receives, and none of them could explain why we have this stuff in there. I did empty it out in my tests, and we get pure ash coming out of the incinerator these days. So I just checked the different truck lines using that building, made sure they are set up correctly, and left it at that. The ash export truck will simply take care of the unwanted byproducts, and we will have pure ash in there eventually. We also had a little bit of garbage pickup delay happening in the new prison, and that caused some pollution in the nearby houses. Adding a collection point should fix that. Now, this steel label. Let's find out what's holding it there. Oh, right. The construction outposts. At this point these vehicles can be safely sent back to their original offices, and we can demolish these free ones. There is still something. There it is. The free gas station. Definitely don't need it anymore. Only, I wish I emptied it out first. All that gas created a lot of hazardous waste that we need to pick up before it will disappear. Look! We have coal being produced. And it is being taken back to the steel mill for processing. It seemed to be working as intended. Now we just need to take care of the iron. There is no steel without it after all. To speed up the mine construction, I decided to add in that temporary road connection I talked about in the last episode. The helicopters simply don't bring in enough people to be fast enough, so we need the help of the buses. This road is very much temporary. I don't intend to keep it around, so I didn't bother to make it look nice or anything. I didn't want the helicopters to waste time on the mine, so I took them off from the list of assigned offices. But they will reassign themselves in a second, so I will need to take more drastic action. With the light cable car line done, we can start filling it up with cars, the same exact way we did with the other one. Thankfully, it's a much shorter line, so it will be done much more quickly. If we bought these cars in bulk, and we didn't establish a pattern before they are picked up, the trucks would just load them on a first-come first-served basis, creating an imbalance on the line. I noticed that the helicopters returned to the mine, which is not what they should be doing. The cable towers are more important. I was about to tell the offices to stop auto-searching for jobs, but I ran into the local vehicles not being refueled. It seems that free gas station was more important than I first gave it credit for. We need it replaced. Okay. Things are back to normal. Now the helicopter offices. There. The choppers will now focus on finishing the cable towers, the rest will be dealt with by the buses. Alright. The aggregate line is now operational. At this point the light cable line should have its deliveries wrapped up, so we can tell the trucks to drop things off at the aggregate station instead, and we can buy the cars for them. These are of course a lot bigger than the light cars, but we can still carry 4 at a time, and we have 8 trucks running around, only one of them will need to make a second trip to deliver everything. Very nice. We have iron waiting to be brought down from the mountain. There we go. The first few trickles of homemade steel. Things should only get faster as the population starts settling back into the new town. With all this sorted, we can start setting up the different rail distribution offices to start using it as the primary source of steel. Thankfully, these offices will always prioritize domestic sources before resorting to buying anything at the border, so we just need to add them into the list of assignments, and that should deal with it. And let's not forget about exports. If we overproduce the stuff, we should be allowed to make some money off it. 50% fill rate should be good enough. Only, we have no open wagons in the export office, so we need to buy some to enable this functionality. Alright. If the steel mill output storage goes above 50%, the export office will pick up the excess production and sell it to our neighbors, netting us a pretty hefty amount of money. The next thing we need to worry about is the waste. The local train station tasked with handling that stuff is already starting to fill up, so we really need to get on this as soon as we can. And for some reason, I still can't add the depot as a stop. Maybe it can only be added after at least 2 other stops are in the list. For now, I'll just tell the train to make the drop-off at one of the distribution offices, and immediately send it to the depot once the cars are attached. While it was en route, I checked on the garbage situation in Dolny, and it was back to normal. We only had pure ash in the incinerator output dump, just as nature intended. That should do it. The train will take the hodgepodge of mixed waste from the steel mill, and drop it off at the central processing. I really wanted to include sorting with those transfer stations at the mill area, but we do that anyway with the separator, so I landed on this setup. This is where I remembered about the radio station. I set it to use less people in the early days of the Republic, when we had much fewer people to put to work, so it was essential to balance the flow of workers. Now we can afford to run it at full capacity. According to the graphs, we are almost back to normal, but it will still take a while to fully stabilize things. Hey, I almost forgot. We have these reclaimed materials waiting in the waste processing center. Let's not repeat our error by letting them get filled up, resulting in another overflow situation. We need to tell both domestic offices to use it as a source of materials, but more importantly, we need to tell the export office to take the excess away if it goes above a certain level. We need to keep some room in these waste recyclers at all times. Okay, we have the assignments set up, now we just need some aggregate cars in the export office. Very good. We have all the cars present in the relevant offices, and they should all know what their job is. Let's see what's next on the agenda. It seems there is some leftover gravel in the cars in the second domestic office. That is understandable. We are feeding the gravel into the new helicopter construction hub through an engine tower, which disrupts the fill rate monitoring on the target storage. No matter, we are only using those cars for gravel anyways, so it won't hurt to have some left over for later. And would you look at that? We have a 100% fill rate on the steel mill input storages. In my previous tests, it was struggling a little bit with the coal, mostly thanks to the cable car throughput. I'm sure we will see that happen once we have the population back up to full in the town. I was tempted to buy more of these train sets for our commuter line, but they are $1 million a piece, so this will have to do for now. And we have garbage piling up again, which means the train is off to deliver to the processing center. Yep, there it is. It's already being sifted through, separating out the different kinds of waste. Only, the two trucks tasked with taking the leftover stuff to the incinerator are struggling to keep up with these sudden spikes in demand, so I think it's time we bought a second pair of trucks to add to that line. The problem is, the line names I used aren't descriptive enough. It's all nice and well that we know what the lines are doing, but we should have some idea about the locations too. I will get on that once I sort out the mistaken assignments. Yeah. We need these guys to work in the other processing center, not the one near Dolny. Let's follow this guy, and make sure it's actually heading to where we need it to go. I think it's time we took another look at our naming convention. They work for the most part, but there are a few that could use a little tweaking. I just realized I still haven't named the new town. Let's just give it a temporary label, and worry about it in the future. We also have a bunch of commuter lines that are still using the default name, so they also need to be sorted into the list. Now that we have two separate towns, all the refrigerated trucks should be named according to the area of operation, not just have a nondescript number on them. The trucks in Dolny are all technically importing the meat straight from the border, but this one is transferring it from the local distribution center, so we needed to name it accordingly. Oh, right. These guys can definitely stop running around and park in the road depot. They did their work, and did it quite well. I kind of wish there was a send all vehicles to the depot button on the line interface. Having to send them all one by one is a bit of a chore. While I wasn't looking, we had a massive 700,000 ruble purchase, which completely flatlined our bank balance. I only noticed the issue when we started getting power notifications. Now, what could have been so expensive to take away 700,000 rubles in an instance? Ah! Electrical components. Makes sense. They are programmed to become more and more pricey as time goes on, simulating the ever-increasing complexity of the electronics industry, and couple that with inflation, they can become extremely expensive over time. But hey! We have steel, we have plastics in the form of the recycled stuff, and we can just import some chemicals as needed. I think it's time we took care of this, and built a factory to make our own components. This is what we will do for the rest of the episode. A simple little electro components assembly. We are a bit low on room at the moment, so there was no way to place it in a way where we could use factory connections. We will just use trucks to keep it full of the materials it needs. To keep it filled up, I think we will use a distribution office. The factory itself will definitely need to have an outside storage, both for the imported materials, as well as the outputs. Okay, I changed my mind. We should definitely make this railroad accessible, and instead of building a secondary cargo station, I just opted to build the warehouse with the built-in train platform. It's a bit of a shame we can't go around this way, but we can just use the other side. I think this will do. We have a rail connection to bring in the plastic and the chemicals, and we have a ready source of steel next door, which we will just use the distribution office to take stuff from. I will most likely build a mechanical components factory in the area too, just to take that off our list of imports as well, and with that, this place could be considered complete. We will obviously keep an eye on it, and make adjustments as needed, but I think we are done. I think it's time we started thinking about our next great venture, maybe a new town. We will need to take a look at our long-term import-export balance sheet, and see what we should focus on next. I would love to take prefab panels and bricks off the list for example, and while it's a tiny amount compared to the rest, it would also be nice to have homemade planks too. Then there's chemicals. And gravel. Yeah, we have a lot of work left to do, but at least we should be in a more stable position with our finances. Anyways, if you haven't done it already, I'd love it if you subscribe to the channel, and leaving a like would also let me know that this video was worth making. If you feel that it was good enough, and you can afford it, please consider going to my Ko-fi page, which you can find in the description, and donate an amount that you feel is appropriate. And if you did like what you've seen, there should be links to some of my other videos and playlists on the screen. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you in the next one.